Hi, and welcome to Cuisine Secrets with Julie. When you think of Indian food, a few dishes probably come to mind. Curries, naans, samosas, and possibly this super popular, but not Indian at all, chicken tikka masala. These dishes barely scratch the surface of or even resemble true Indian cuisine. When we come back, we'll visit a renowned Indian restaurant and Michelin-starred chef to learn about regional Indian specialties that speak way more than curry.
How can you save time and money when you shop? Get into the habit of buying your store's store brands. You get the same quality as national brands and save at the cash register. No apps, no coupons, just money in your pocket. Give store brands a try and smile your way through the supermarket.
Welcome back. One fact is most Indian restaurants in the U.S. serve Americanized versions of only North Indian food, leaving out entire swaths of this country. At 1/3 the size of the U.S. and about 1 billion more people, India has a wide range of specialized and unique regional cuisines to explore. Another surprising fact is many of the key ingredients that go into Indian food aren't actually native to India at all, but a result of foreign influences and history, including religious migrations and regional differences. To learn more about these facts and the regional specialties in Indian cuisine, let's go chat and taste with an expert. With more than 20 years of experience working in award-winning Indian restaurants and a master's degree in food studies from NYU, Michelin-starred chef Surbhi Sahni loves sharing her passion for authentic and fusion Indian cuisine. Hi, I'm here at Saar Indian Bistro with Chef Surbhi Sahni. Thank you so much for having us.
Excited that you guys are here.
Very excited to be here. And how have the menus you've created at different places, say from Tamarind to Devi to here to Saar, like how has that evolved over time?
Once I came to America and I started my food studies program, I really started thinking about Indian food and what it meant to me and how I was connected to it and how little I knew about it.
Right.
Surprisingly, because even though I grew up in Delhi, like just the cuisine is so widespread and it's just so different from state to state, from village to village. And started my journey about like starting to read more and more about Indian food, understand where it's coming from, what the roots are. So I think like at Devi, we really started with very modern look at Indian food. We were doing some home style dishes, but not a whole lot. There was still a lot of familiar dishes on our menus. And then went on to doing Tulsi, where I was doing more sort of home style stuff, doing a lot of like getting more experimental with things, to coming to Saar, where we're doing like a lot of small plates, large plates, also like being very, very widespread in terms of the menu. When I say that, I mean I'm doing a lot more regional dishes and not just like dishes from the north, say, which is what you generally see in a lot of the restaurants where it's very tandoori based, or there's a lot of like, there'll be a couple of different curries that everyone is very familiar with and that we all know, right?
Yeah.
But I tried to like kind of come up with things that were a little bit more different here and really thought through what is it like that excites me and what is it that I would like to cook in my house if these guests were to arrive at my place. So that's how I've kind of turned it around for this one.
Fantastic. Thank you. I love hearing about the evolution of Indian cuisine. And I know even for myself, as someone who's always loved food and cooking and trying different things, like most Americans and most Indian food menus in the States really feature some common things, right? Chicken tikka masala, samosas, maybe some dal and some naan. And, you know, there's so much more to Indian cuisine. I'd love to hear from your perspective what misconceptions are about Indian cuisine in the States and Indian dishes, and which areas are a little bit underrepresented too.
So I think the one misconception that not just me, there's many other people that have kind of gone back and drilled into people is that there's nothing called as curry, really. Curry is actually a leaf. In India, it's called curry leaf or curry patta. And a lot of our dishes, when you start like really cooking them, each one of them has different spice mixes, different ingredients, and that's what makes a difference in each of the dishes. Also, Indian food is very spicy, Indian food is very oily, Indian food is very heavy.
The food is fresh and bright and seasonal and
it's very light. It's very light. Like if you start eating at home, like I don't cook with a lot of dry spices because I'm not used to eating that way. We mostly just use onion, ginger, garlic, and some chilies, and that's pretty much it, in cilantro.
Right.
Like, you can actually make Indian food with just the minimal things.
Right.
But at the same time, you can make a very extravagant kind of a meal and like come up with a dish that's like really involved. One of the ingredients that every one of us have in our pantry, pretty much most of us, is mustard. Like, mustard paste is just so omnipresent in pretty much every pantry across the country. And we in the Northeast, in Bengal, they use a lot of mustard and mustard paste in their cooking. We don't always fry or like put things in oil. We also steam them.
Right.
There's like so many other different preparations that you can do right in your home, and it'll be totally Indian and very different.
Are there regions of Indian cuisine that you feel or you found are really underrepresented here in the US that you wish that people in the States could try?
Oh, there's many. I think like there's there's actually hardly ever representation of Bengali food, hardly any representation of Kashmiri food, which is more on the north. Sorry, Bengali food is from the northeast. Also, like in the south, there are like smaller regions that you'll see some generic dishes, but South itself is so involved, and each state has their own way of. Maybe let's say like if there's one kind of soup which is called sambar, which is served throughout the south of India, but once you start traveling and you start going to different states, each state makes it differently. And the flavor profile is so different. So there's so many dishes that you can I can think of.
This is all so fascinating, and I have to tell you, I am in food heaven right now. So Surbhi, I would love it. Can you take us all on a little virtual tour of India, region by region, with what the nuances and differences are and things that people may not have tried at home?
Of course, I'd love to. In front of you, you have something that we call as chingri cutlet. This is from the northeast. Cutlets are very popular in Calcutta and around those areas. It was brought in by the Dutch and the British into the culture and has stayed. In fact, there are stores that you can go to where they have already pre-breaded cutlets. So they can be of any variation. You have chicken cutlets, fish, shrimp, pork. So you go in and you pick the cutlet that you want, and they just fry it for you fresh, and they serve it with a kasundi or a mustard chutney, which is mustard is really big in that area. And a reflection of that, I've also like kind of done this fish dish, which is with a mustard sauce and has mustard and saffron in it with some halibut, and you'll also see there's a little upma with it. Right next to it, I've also kind of had you taste a risotto, which is being made by
risotto. See, that's not something that a lot of people would associate with Indian cuisine, for sure.
So here's that being a little experimental.
That's cool,
because the one thing that we don't see or know that mushrooms are really big in India, and I was talking earlier to you about the use of morels in Kashmir. And we brought this dish in the restaurant because my daughter loves risotto, and she loves mushrooms, and this is something that I've been making for her in my home. And unlike using the risotto rice, we use the basmati rice.
And it doesn't look as like creamy, you know what I mean, Rich? It's like more of like a pilaf almost.
Yeah, it's almost like a pilaf, but it's still it has a little spice element to it. So it's a little experimental, and it's a little reflection of how the pilaf or the biryanis in India can be. So it's a little crossover there.
Very cool.
Also, we have, like I brought in a dish from the south of India for you to try.
So this is from the south?
This is from the south, and that is dosas with a black pepper chicken and some coconut chutney. Those of the guests that don't know this, but dosas are these fermented pancakes that are made with rice flour.
Cool. So like a crepe kind of, or a tortilla.
It's a tortilla,
but made with rice flour.
Correct. And it's gluten-free. And generally it's done as you'll find a lot of dosa restaurants in the city where they're just doing crispy dosas.
Right.
But like at home in India, they also make dosas, like we call them set dosas, where the dosa is not crispy, but it's soft.
Okay.
And they serve it with like different curries. So that's why I did it for you to try.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful. And I know coconut is used a lot more in the
Oh,
South,
yes,
right?
a
That's
lot
one
more.
of the indicative, yeah.
And then just like what we were talking earlier about the differences now, that if you went to the west of India, the food is completely different from here, where there's like a lot of steaming that is done. We know that like there's a lot of vegetarians.
Third of the country, right? I was reading.
Yes,
Yes, amazing.
Yes. And so in the West, there's a huge part of the population that is vegetarian, but also they almost always add a pinch of sugar in everything they cook.
Oh, interesting. Just to kind of like smooth out the flavors or balance the spices and the flavors.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So try it.
Very cool. Yeah,
Dig
no, for
in.
sure. Something that I find really fascinating, you guys, having cutlet shops where you can choose your cutlet and get it fried. It's almost like going into a sliced pizza place where you say, I would like that flavor, I would like that flavor, and they cook it for you on the spot. I think that's so fascinating. Yeah. I can't wait to sample. I know there have been a lot of outside influences on Indian cuisine as it's evolved over the centuries. Like one of the reasons there's so many vegetarians is because of the Hindu population. And can you just tell us a little bit, because I find it surprising to learn about ingredients that I associate with Indian cuisine that I had no idea came from other places. So can you tell us a bit about that?
So sure, I think like one of the biggest influences, like we always talk about naan bread, for example.
Yes.
It was brought in by the Muslim invasion into the country. So they brought this tandoor and they brought the flatbread. They also brought in a lot of the sweets that are like now part of the Indian continent. They also brought the concept of just even making Indian sweets with milk, because we were not doing that before they came in.
Interesting.
Then also, the Portuguese brought in the tomatoes and the chili powder, something that Indian food can never live without.
Exactly.
If they hadn't come to us, then we would not be the Indian food the way we are today. You also see, once the British came in, they brought a completely different culture of food into the country. Like, for example, just bread itself, that we have it like as a staple now, sliced bread, you find it everywhere. But it was brought in by the British. We didn't have it. You also saw them bring potatoes. We also saw them bring like so many other things that are now part of Indian cuisine that we would have never had had they not arrived.
Yeah, I mean, with samosas, so many of them are stuffed with like peas and potatoes or cauliflower. And when we were talking earlier, a lot of these vegetables and ingredients were actually brought in by Europeans, and now they're what everybody associates with Indian cuisine. I always find it so fascinating, all of those different outside influences. And like you said, obviously, tomatoes and chili powder, it's something that everybody associates with Indian dishes, and it wasn't there until the Portuguese came.
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to try this. Surbhi, thank you so much for having us here today. We really appreciate hearing all about your expertise in Indian cuisine and welcoming us into your home pretty much. Yeah.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go back to the studio and I'm going to show you guys at home how to make a really amazing regional Indian dish for yourself. So as Surbhi said, cutlet shops are a popular snack stop in the West Bengali city of Calcutta. Lightly spiced, pre-breaded cutlets of all kinds are available to fry on the spot, and they're often served with a spicy, pungent mustard dipping sauce known as kasundi. Today, I'm going to show you how to make Bengali-style prawn cutlets with a very similar mustard sauce. It's great as a fun appetizer or party dish, and it uses ingredients you can find at your local supermarket. So to get started, we are going to take some large peeled deveined shrimp and create a really flavorful, delicious marinade using just a handful of ingredients and a food processor. First thing we're going to do is take one small onion that's chopped up, add it to your food processor. Then next, we will add a few really great seasonings, some fresh minced ginger. You can buy the jarred if you like, or you can mince it yourself by hand. Going to add some garam masala, which adds a little bit of sweetness and some earthiness. Then some turmeric. It's that gorgeous mustard yellow color, and it's used in a lot of Indian cuisine. And then last spice for a little bit of a kick, but actually not heat, just extra flavor. We're going to use some standard chili powder, just like you would use in regular chili at home. Then finally, a little bit of kosher salt. Now we're just going to puree this in our food processor to a nice fine consistency. Okay, once your ingredients are combined, we're going to add a little bit of Greek yogurt. And I'm doing this because it's really going to help infuse the shrimp with great flavor, and it's also going to kind of stick to the shrimp so that when we bread it, you're gonna get a nice, crispy, flavorful coating too. This is what you are looking for when you're done, just everything combined together. So next, we're just going to pour the marinade on our shrimp in a large bowl. Now you want to marinate this in the fridge for a little bit and not for too long, or your shrimp can kind of get a little bit mushy and overly soft. So we'll just cover this with some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge until we're ready to bread it and cook it. So our shrimp have been marinating for a half hour up to 2 hours in the fridge. And now what we're going to do is bread them in a little bit of panko. But let me explain something to you first too. Now in India at a cutlet shop, they're typically deep fried, but I know many of you at home might not have access to a deep fryer, or deep frying can be a little bit less healthy and a lot messier. So what we're gonna do today is lighten things up a little bit and oven fry them instead. It's one of my favorite ways to mimic the crunchy, delicious texture of frying with a lot less calories and fat and a lot less cleanup too. So we'll start with a cookie sheet that you've lined with parchment paper. The reason I'm using parchment paper, it's going to absorb some of the moisture and also create a non-stick surface, so you're gonna get great browning and a crispy finish. So we'll start with a prawn or shrimp and dip it in some beaten egg. I'm sure many of you have made cutlets at home before. Here's a little trick for you too, by the way. We move this over into the panko. Keep one hand reserved for the wet ingredients and one hand reserved for the dry ingredients, so you don't wind up making a cutlet out of your hand. And we're gonna transfer it to the baking sheet. Now, I wanna also mention something about oven frying and using panko. Panko breadcrumbs are larger in texture and they already have their own amazing crunch to them. But when we're going to oven fry something like shrimp, it's a great idea to pre-toast them a little bit. You can either do that in a skillet with a tiny bit of oil or butter, or just on a cookie sheet in the oven to give them a little browning. That way, when our shrimp come out of the oven, they're already pre-browned and crispy and delicious. So again, a little tip for you at home: if you're oven frying, pre-toast your panko before you put things into the oven. So now we're just going to continue doing this with the rest of our shrimp. So now that our shrimp are all breaded, they're going to go into a 450 oven that you've preheated for about 10 minutes. Shrimp cook so quickly. They're going to be juicy and tender when they come out with a really crispy, delicious coating. Now, by the way, if you wanted to, you could also bread them just like this and air fry them if you have an air fryer and you're into that. Or as I said earlier, you could pan fry them or deep fry them too. And by the way, if you're not a shrimp fan, no problem. You could use this same marinade, same technique with cauliflower florets, would be really delicious, or even just chicken tenders or chicken fingers. So while our shrimp cutlets are oven frying, we're going to make our kasandi, or Bengali style mustard sauce. Now, the cool thing about these mustard sauces that go with Indian cutlets, they're a little bit more tart and pungent and have a lot more flavor. So they're traditionally made with black mustard seeds and yellow mustard seeds. But I'm gonna show you how to make it using grainy mustard that you can get at your supermarket. They also have a little bit of a sweet edge. I'll show you where that comes from. So we'll start with some grainy mustard right back in your food processor. You could use spicy mustard here if you wanted to, or even like a flavored mustard, like a horseradish mustard could be fun. And next, for a little bit of a tart edge and some great color and a little bit of sweetness, we're gonna add a little bit of diced mango. You could use fresh ripe mango or defrosted frozen mango too. Then we will add a little bit of lemon juice. For a different tart edge and a little bit of sweetness, we're going to use a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And then two of the spices, or two ingredients that were in our marinade, some fresh minced ginger, gives it a little bit of a kick, and a little bit of turmeric, which gives it a little more depth and a gorgeous color. Now, if you wanted to make this spicier and really give it a kick, you could add either a whole or a piece of a serrano or another chili, but we're just gonna keep this mustard mango today and skip the heat. Once these are all in your food processor, it's as easy as combining them together. Now, we're going for a consistency that is kind of like a dip, but not as thick. So if you needed to, you could add a little bit more water, but this looks just perfect. So now that our shrimp are oven fried and crispy and delicious, we are going to plate it with some fun veggies just for color and to give it a little bit more interest when you put it out. We've got some tomatoes, cilantro, radishes, cabbage. You could use some sliced onion here, whatever you have on hand. It's going to be amazing with this mustard sauce. Put a few out on here. And that's it, you guys. It is that easy to make beautiful Bengali style shrimp cutlets with a mango mustard sauce. So you guys, these are lightly spiced and filled with flavor. They are not spicy. Your friends and family are going to love them. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our Store Brands USA YouTube channel, and I'll see you next time.